should we just get into
Oh,
where
yes.
we left off? Does
Yes,
everybody think
let's
that's a good idea?
I'm ready to dive in.
All right, we'll get over to the machine
right.
already. And as always, I'm going to cover up the camera so I don't give you motion sickness and you don't see the floor. Because, I mean, a lot of sewing happens in here. I'll just say that. All right, so we're going to move over to the machine and start where we left off. Gotta turn this around. Oh, I'm up close on my face there. Okay, so, Well, I could get about here and you can see the beautiful thread. The beautiful thread wall and walls. Let me just make sure I didn't get my greasy finger on there.
Okay.
All right, here we are. So, where'd we leave off, Janet?
We finished putting the yoke on the back. So the last things we did last week was we put the pleats in the back and we applied one yoke to the right side and one yoke to the wrong side. So on the outside, remember your pleats should be going toward the arm side. So
Can we get that closer?
If they're not, fix that before you put the yoke on. And then remember that the other yoke you put on the inside, right side to wrong side, so that when it's flipped up, it's right side. Okay? So now we're going to sew the shoulder seams. And this is where we're going to burrito.
Burrito, the famous burrito.
So now the instructions might be step 1 and is step 2 vice. How can I say this? Sometimes the instructions will tell you to sew it to the facing first, and others will tell you to sew it to the right side of the shirt first, which is what we're going to do is sew these shoulder seams. It doesn't matter which one you do first. So if the instructions are different than what I'm telling you, it's just because that's the way I felt that day. But the more I teach this class, the more I think this is the way to do it so that you don't accidentally get things backwards or wrong sides. So if you start with the right side and then peel back the inside yoke so it's down, because we only want to be sewing just to the outside yoke at the moment. Okay, so if you've got your shirt laid out like that, now you can take your 2 fronts, which remember we clean finished the facing, and remember you put the hem up. So the hem is
a little closer.
Hem should be up
And top.
and well, yeah, stitched.
Yes.
On both fronts and the back. We pressed up the hem on the sleeve too in the beginning, but we haven't stitched it yet. Just the fronts and the back. Now, the reason I like to do this way is because so many times, especially if you don't have a lot of room to lay your stuff out, I've had students get these backwards. And so they put the right on the left and the left on the right, and they got an arm side in the middle, and that will fit no one. So we want to make sure, and this way, by doing it this way and getting them both lined up, you'll be positive that you've got the fronts on correctly to the back. Now all I have to do is turn this sideways, and I'm going to stitch both of these shoulder seams at 1/4 of an inch, just like we did the yoke to the back. The first time, we're going to stitch across the seam twice. The first time, we're going to do it with 1/4 inch, and the second time will be 3/8. Now make sure your facing is not going to get stitched in there. You may have it pressed it up and there, but that just unfold it. And then we're just going to stitch this at 1/4. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is we love these. Jessica really likes this. It's a magnetic seam gauge, and it will sit right on your throat plate. It's a really strong magnet. So you can set it anywhere you want. So if you're having trouble keeping a 1/4 inch seam, you could use this and you will be spot on always, because that is a lot easier to follow than those little lines. All right, somebody asked me last week, are you back tacking? Yes, I always back tack. I start a couple of stitches in and then back up to the edge and then go forward. So anytime you see my hand moving to the right, that's where the reverse lever is. But I do that at the beginning and the end of every seam. There's very few exceptions that I don't. Now I know there are people that stitch with a 2 stitch length, and they don't back up because theirs isn't as easy to come out. But I don't like using a 2. It's too tight for garment construction, in my opinion. So we're going to do that at a 1/4. And then, without cutting the thread, we're just going to bring the other shoulder seam in. And stitch at a 1/4. Now remember, thumb under, fingers on top, get the other end lined up before you get started. Okay, so now we have, all we have to do is come in here and clip this thread right here, and it releases both shoulders. So now we've got the fronts sewn to the right side of the back at the shoulder seams. All right, so when we turn it over, remember this is our facing to our yoke, and we want to sew the shoulder seams together, but we have to do a burrito. So what we're going to do, I want to make sure they get this, Jess, so make sure we get this orientation. So this is the front yoke, this is the facing, or the back yoke, and this is the facing to the back yoke. This is the shoulder seam we just stitched. And this can be confusing at first. That's why I am trying to be very methodical about it. So now you see what happens when we turn it like this. This is our yoke facing, this is our shoulder seam. Now we're going to bring this around, folding it up over the shirt. Sorry.
So that's all shirt in there.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that just kept looking like the right side to me. There's not a big difference in the right and wrong side, so. All right, so did we follow that?
Why don't you do it one more time, and I'll get. All right, so point out the pieces.
Okay, so this is my front. This is the yoke that actually only have to line it up right here at the beginning. Okay, and you want to just get that lined up.
Oh, wait, nope. We're going to do it again because some people are saying it froze.
Okay.
So that'll be good, because if it didn't freeze for you, you just get to see it again. All right, so you got...
So here's our pre-sewn shoulder seam. And this is our facing to our yoke. And we're just going to fold the shirt up inside. This is why it's a burrito, because it has a filling.
A shirt filling.
And then we're going to stitch this at 3/8. So I've got to move this back if I want to use it. There. And same thing, start a little bit ahead and then back into it. And once you've got that secured, now this is where your needle really is your third hand. Then you can come back and make sure everything's nice and neat and flat. And grab the other end of your facing. Get all your edges lined up. And then 3/8 inch seam. And again, we're doing this at 1/4 and then at 3/8, just so we don't have to be spot on. If we sewed them both at 3/8, there are chances where there'd be some mishaps and you'd see some of the stitching on the right side, which you don't want to do. Now, and there's our shoulder seam, front, and here's the inside. So just like magic, I'm going to do the other one. I'll do this one a little bit faster. So again, shoulder seam. Get all this out of your way. Fold that right up there. Get it on. Oh, darn, people. I hate it when this happens. My needle came unthreaded. See if I can thread it quickly. Okay. All right, so we're going to 3/8 on this one. Lined up. You only have to worry just about the beginning until you get that needle sunk in there. Back up and make sure it's nice and secure. Stop with the needle down. Always stop with the needle down. A lot of the new machines have that function where you can just set it to automatically always stop with the needle down. It's a lot of help. Okay, so we're going to line up. Make sure these are all nice and flush. Yep. And lined up here. And 3/8 inch seam. See how nice that seam gauge is? You just can't go wrong. I don't use it a lot, but when Jessica was saying how much she enjoyed it, and I did years ago, and I thought, oh, well, maybe other people would find that as beneficial as she did. So, and then we just turn it right side out.
Pull out your filling.
Pull it out. And so now your shirt should look, let me just flip this around.
A lot of happening
here. Okay. So, there's the fronts of our shirt. See the pockets here. There's our yoke all accomplished. So now, meet me at the pressing station and we'll get this pressed, and we're going to use a product called the clapper.
All right, before we head over there, can you answer a question?
Oh, you know what? I'm not going to go over there first. I'm going to do one more stitching thing. Go ahead with the question.
Do you have it under control? Do you know what you're doing?
Is that important?
Okay. Somebody, and I just want to find it so that I can say their name.
Okay.
Oh, Susan, is it a myth regarding the seam gauge?
Yes.
Thing, I'm a jig. Is it a myth that magnets mess up your machine?
Well, here's the thing. It depends on the age of your machine and whether it's computerized. So first of all, for a magnet to cause a problem, it has to be a computerized machine. Secondly, it would have to be a much older computerized machine because they are not affected by magnets anymore. So I think you'll have to do some research on your own. If you have a computerized machine that's 15 or 20 years old, there might be a chance that you shouldn't have a magnet around it. Confirm that with doing some research. But yeah, so it's not a total myth, but it's like everything else. It's been carried over for way past the need for it. The newer machines and obviously the mechanical machines, it doesn't hurt a thing. Okay, so in the spirit of express sewing, which is my favorite way to sew, which means I stitch as much as I can at the machine before I go to press as much as I can before I stitch. Some of the things we've done out of order, like putting the hem in already, they attribute to this express system, and they help us get the project done faster without having to sew faster, just more efficient. So the next thing while I'm still sitting here is I'm going to sew my two collars together. And I apologize because I used an off-white thread in the hopes that you'd be able to see my top stitching better. But obviously you can't see this as well because we've interfaced both sides of the collar. So can you see the stitching okay?
Yeah.
All right, so then I want you to keep a close up here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this.
No, put it down a little bit. Yes.
I'm going to clip this corner off just above that stitch. Now the reason that I did that is because whenever we're clipping a corner, the only reason we want to clip a corner is so that the seam allowance will fit into that area, right? So if I fold this over right now, it doesn't fit, it overlaps, and that's what causes those lumps and bumps that you can't get rid of. If it's a square corner, this is all you have to do is cut that off at a 45-degree angle and it'll fit in perfectly. But since this isn't a square corner, what we want to do is come in here and take some more of this out on both sides without being ridiculous, so that when this does get folded over, they're not overlapping and there isn't a lot of bumps. I think I need to trim just a little bit more, but I think you get the idea. Just be careful not to get too close. All right, so then we'll do the other corner quick, and then we're going to go to the pressing station.
All right, I know when the video froze for some people, when it comes back, the sound is off. If you just close it and open it back up, you shouldn't have a problem. And I apologize for that. I don't know why it's doing that.
Well, it's the internet. All right, meet me at the pressing station.
Alrighty, I'll do that.
All right.
Okay. Here we go. It didn't cut out. That's just my finger.
Okay. So now I want to use...
Hold on. It's trying to focus on you.
Oh.
It's having a hard time for some reason. Oh, there we go. Alright.
So, what you want to do now is press...
Hold on, but don't show anything on this further than your shoulders.
Oh. I have to wait for Jessica.
You want to tell them what you're doing.
Okay, so what we're going to do is use two of my favorite wooden pressing tools. This is a clapper, and then I have a plethora of these, but this is a point presser. So we'll use this for the collar, and they're both indispensable in my opinion. So let me show you how they work. Some of you I know already have these tools, but they're not something that's readily available. A lot of people have never heard or seen them before. So what we want to do is
Sorry, guys. You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, make sure that we get a really good flat press with no little tucks. In other words, I don't want this to roll forward. I want it to be as flat as possible on this seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press it, and while it's still hot and some steam is still involved, I'm going to take my clapper and I'm just going to press down. And that's as simple as it is, and it just leaves this laying flat. Now I'll explain the scientific concept here. And what it is that fabric does not like heat and steam. And when you apply heat and steam, particularly to, say, a cotton, it lies down. The fibers lie down. When they cool off and dry, they pop right back up. But by using a clapper and holding it flat and taking the moisture back out and the heat, then it dries flat. And it'll stay flat for a long time. Now what I want to do now is just turn this over and check the inside, because we're going to be top stitching this seam. We want to make sure that we don't have any rolled edges in here, and we do. So what we want to do, and I just usually use the edge of the iron to press those to keep them from rolling forward, and then clap them. There, they're nice and flat now, and there's no rolled edges. So, and I did the same thing back here to the back, off camera, just because I didn't want you to have to watch me press that as well. But we're going to top stitch this seam and both shoulder seams in a minute. But before we do that, let's get the collar ready. So here is our point presser. What we're going to do is we're going to lay this seam right on top of that point presser. And see, this is why it's got a point. It goes all the way to the tip. And we're going to press this seam open. Now the reason what's the name of my iron that's not gliding? It's got something on it. Dang it. I suppose they can hear me. I'm whispering. Yeah. I'm sure they can hear me. Okay, so hey Brenda. I need you to clean this iron when I finish this demo. It's got something sticky on it. Normally this glides. So we've opened up that seam. We want to open up the two end seams as well. And I think I started to tell you why we do this. And the reason we do this is that when we turn it right side out, and we always want it to turn right on the seam. And usually there's some spot or two where it won't turn right on that seam, and then it starts to roll to the right side. When you press this seam open and you go to turn it right side out, it now wants to turn on that seam. So I'm going to use my point turner.
Whoop, whoop, all right. Yep.
And now remember, we don't have a lot of seam allowance left in here, so do not under any circumstance start shoving this up through there. Just gently work the fabric over the tip of the point turner, and you'll get a really nice point.
If these wooden pressing tools are something that you still need in your sewing room, they are on our website, islandersewing.com.
Okay, so we've got those really nice. That looks nice. Okay, so now we want, as you can see, because we pressed that open, this collar's just, so now all you, yeah, it's like a boat. But now all I have to do, literally, as the kids say, I need to use my pressing cloth so it doesn't stick, is just press it. Fold it and press it, and it's going to want, in most cases, to fold right on that seam. So you don't have to hardly do a thing. And this works with all kinds of the facing down the front of something that's sewn on. You know, we had a folded facing, but sometimes they're sewn on. And now it has pressed right on that seam. I want to double check it over here. I like it. I like it. And now I just want to clap it. And the reason we're clapping this,
because we're very proud of it.
Because we clap. We want to top stitch it. And when you're top stitching, so many times people get frustrated and they're not confident getting a nice, clean, straight top stitching. And there's a couple of little tricks to that, but they're not deceptive. They're not hard to come by. But one of them is having a completely flat seam, because now your presser foot doesn't have any problem, and you just glide right across here and you get nice, clean top stitching. So now we're going to go back to the machine and do our top stitching. Oh, you know, there's one more thing I wanted to draw your attention to. Let me see. When I was doing these facings, somebody asked last week about how close I was getting to the edge. And I said, well, it's kind of a needle width away, and I noticed that in my replay. And I want to qualify that. It should be even closer. You want to get as close to that edge without being exactly on the edge. Get as close as you can, and that's why this is going to lay flat. Okay. So with the collar, we just, did I say this is my right side? Yes. We just want to top stitch a needle width away. And, you know, according to the stitch length that you found the most pleasing when you use your stitch sample. And you'll notice I still have thumb under, fingers on top, even though that bottom layer isn't likely to get eased through faster. But if you get in the practice of this, you'll always hold your fabric this way, and it does give you more control. And the left hand should be right here, guiding it so that you get that really nice, great top stitching. Hey, Brenda? The iron? Thank you, please, and thank you. There's a yellow cloth underneath the pressing station there, and iron cleaner is above. I always have several tubes of iron cleaner. Well, I lucked out on both corners. You know how sometimes you've got to dial down a stitch in order to get right to the exact spot you need when you turn a corner. I got lucky. Okay, so now our collar's top stitch. Now we need to top stitch our shoulder seams and our back yoke seam.
So now you're doing the shoulder seam.
This is the shoulder seam. And again, I'm doing just a needle width away. And somebody wrote, I think it was today, and they said, you know, should I use contrasting thread? And I don't subscribe to contrasting thread on this type of shirt because I went to a lot of trouble for a Hawaiian shirt to match the prints and match the pocket. And then if I put contrasting thread on it, it sort of negates that. So that's just my own personal taste. But some of you are not doing it Hawaiian style, that maybe you're using a stripe or a plaid. And then contrasting thread is a great idea. But if your confidence level in top stitching isn't up there yet, take your time and maybe use matching thread for now and do a little practicing. But the thing to know about top stitching is how to use the foot. The foot is my guide. I don't pay any attention to the needle. And obviously you can't match a seam gauge because your fabric is covering everything. So in this case, I'm running the inside of this foot right along this fold. Because of the way my needle position is, I know that's going to give me that needle width away. And if I approach every seam that I'm top stitching like this, they'll all be consistent.
And remind them what seam this is you're working on.
I'm on the back now. I did both shoulders, and I chained those together just like I did when I sewed them. So there's my top stitching on my shoulder. And again, I probably would have used black on this one, top stitching thread, but I wanted you to be able to see it on camera. And if anybody, I'm slightly over a 3 is what I found was the look that I like for my top stitching. Okay, so there's the top stitching on the back. And what did I say we're going to do next? before we moved back to the pressing station or any place else, we are going to put the collar on. So you should have a center back clip that it denotes the center back of your garment. You can always get your pattern piece back out, but if you don't, I just fold it in half, make sure it's very, very precise in half, and then to make that little 1/8 inch clip right there. Because this is a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so you don't want a very deep clip. Now let me see if I have a clip in my collar, because I don't remember going back and doing that. Oh, I think that's it right there. Let's see. Yep. So I'm going to match up the clip. Okay, and for those of you who are so inclined, this might be a good place to put a pin. Just hold that in place. The next place you're going to match is the edge of this collar matches to the center front line. And remember, we marked the center front line. I still barely have, but I have a clip. You should have a clip, but you should also very likely have a chalk line too. Mine's kind of fading away up here, but I do have the clip. So this lays right precisely at that clip. You see what I mean about how these are much better notches?
Let me get close.
Can you see that clip?
Barely.
Yep. And then this sits right next to it.
Okay.
Right on the edge of it. And so it's precise. You're not going to be off. All right. So we'll start right here. And we're going to, I'm just going to kind of base this inside the seam allowance for right now. So, and when I say base, I just mean stitch. So right up into, you know what, people? I need to know where my other clip is, so I'm not going to be able to do this right yet. I'm going to need my pattern piece. I sometimes forget to go back and put the clips in after I put the interfacing on. So that's what's going on here. Now these clips will be 1/4 inch, but right now I'm just marking them. But I will clip them further in a minute. Okay. And my little scissors, there they are. Hope I'm not making people dizzy flapping this fabric around. All right, so these clips need to be 1/4 inch deep, because our seam allowance is 1/4, and we are going to be folding these back. I usually wing it, but for your for those who are type A, you want to get an exact 1/4 inch. All right, back to the drawing board. So now I've got those clips in. Sorry about that. All right, we're going to go back. We're going to line this up again. Center front mark, right where that little clip is. And again, I'm going to stitch this inside the seam allowance, because I'm going to come back across it again in a little bit. All right, now we just want to match these up. And you got an inside curve and an outside curve coming together. So you just take your time and inch it over as you go. And when you get to these clips, they should be at the shoulder seam. And my goodness, they're not. What the heck's going on here? Oh, let me see. right, so you're going to stop at the shoulder seam, and that's where your clip should be, and I don't know what happened here. But I'm just going to clip this right at the shoulder seam, 1/4 of an inch, because I don't want this part of the collar in that seam. You see the top part of the collar? I don't want that in that seam, from shoulder seam to shoulder seam. Now in this case, I am going to stitch this at 1/4. I want to match up those centers. So I'm right now about at the center. You saw me mark that center clip, didn't you?
It was already there, but it was barely there.
Ooh. Well, I'm not happy. Should be right there. Okay. All right, I need to figure out something. Nope. All right, we're going to take a break, Jess. I got to figure out what went wrong here, because either I have the right size collar, but it's not fitting properly. So I've done something wrong, and I got to figure it out.
All right, hold on. I'm going to take you guys back over.
That's a good idea.
To here, and we could talk about whatever you want. Give me 1 second. I'm good for something.
All right.
Okay, so she's going to work on that just for a second. She's got it, figured out. And I will talk to you about our next giveaway. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, our wonderful friends Lynette and Nancy won these bobbin savers this week from Schmetz. And this week we have something different also from Schmetz. You've seen us talk a lot about Janet using the Grabbits, and everybody who showed us a photo of their finished garment for our last sew along got one of those Grabbits from us. But what a lot of people don't know is that Schmetz also has these mini Grabbits, which are super fun. You know, they're quite a bit smaller than the regular size, and they're really great. You could see, like, this one has paper clips, so you could put them at, like, in your office for paper clips and stuff like that, or if you pull a lot of staples, stuff like that, for your pins, for needles, you know, all kinds of stuff. We have 2 of these to give away. And what we are going to ask of you this week is to let us know what is the next pattern that you would like to do from Islander for yourself. Have you already bought one and it's sitting there and you haven't made it yet? Did you buy one of Janet's Craftsy classes and you just haven't gotten around to it yet? Do you just have a general list of patterns that you would like to do and there's just not enough time to get them done? Let us know in the comments what the next pattern from Islander Sewing Systems is that you would like to make for yourself or somebody that you know. And then next week at the beginning of the program, we will draw 2 winners. Each person will receive this pack of mini Grabbits. Fun colors from our friends at Schmetz. And you get 2 free paper clips, 3 free pins, and the little, what are the little straight pins called that don't have the bulb at the end? Just other pins without the ball at the end.
You know, the ball at the end didn't come in when I was young, and so they didn't have balls. That's a relatively new thing.
All right, so
all right, I got it under control now.
yeah, Jen, it's any pattern you want to make, not a sew along. Anyone that you want to make on your own, with, you know, and you're on your own time, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be for a sew along. So Carol says the Moto Jacket, Easy V. All right, you ready? Oh, Shirt Makers Express, sports shirt. Are you ready, Janet? You no. Okay. 5 Easy Tees. Whoa, Cape de Elegance, yes. Especially with the cold weather coming up, right? Jacket Express, Easy V. Jacket Express is really just a great jacket to be used for so many different things. You could dress it up. It could be just your basic, like, denim jacket or made out of something else, so it's just like casual, run out the door, need a little extra layer, or you could totally dress it up and make it something fabulous. What does this say here? Oh, Danny says the Moto Jacket, I have the pattern and fabrics and zippers for at least 2 to 3 years in Janet's class on Craftsy. Yeah, get on it, Danny. I want to see that. Shirt Maker Express, Jacket, lots of Jacket Express. I highly, highly recommend that pattern. Holy moly. It's that time of year, guys. I got the snipples and the coffees. Yep, Dolores wants to do a cape. We have a couple different cape patterns. So if you're in a cold weather area, definitely check those out. We have everything from super simple, easy to put together, to, you know, the fancier with the ruffled hood and 5 Easy Tee, Moto Jacket from Anne. What else? What else? She's working away.
Okay.
See, even the professionals have issues.
Well, if I'd have marked it right, I don't know.
She says, if I would have marked it right. Easy V Express. These are all great. I love seeing this, and maybe if you win, I'll hold you to making that. People are going to take back their things. Don't hold me to making something. Some sighing coming from over there. What else? What else? What else? What else?
Oh, I can't believe this.
She can't believe this. Did you guys all see my shirt back there? The fish one? Said I wouldn't. Some of you doubted me, but there it is. At the Tiki Bar. Remind me of the name of the needle you recommend for the lawn. Microtex 10?
10.
Microtex 10. That's from Schmetz. The light, yes. So I know Brenda asked about the light too. but we don't sell it, so I wasn't going to tell Brenda the Spenda about it. Just kidding. What is that an at light? What is that?
No, it's a daylight.
It's a daylight. It's a slim, and I'll show it to you if we get to go back over there today. It is a very slim, very bright light, and yes, it is very helpful. It's one of those things that sometimes you forget to turn it on, and you're like, whoa, man, I'm having a really hard time here, and then it's like, oh, I can see everything again when you turn it on. It's very helpful. I know all the machines have that little light on it, but does it really do that much good for anybody?
All right, come on over.
She's calling us back, guys. I'll show you the light. Let me get over there. All right, I'm just covering this up. She says she's got it together. Let's see. Okay, so there's that light. So it's very slim. It clamps onto the table. It's positionable. Oh, just a tap. You don't even have to press. And you can see right here, it's got the, whatever they call that, where you can, the bendy part. That's what they call it. In the factory, they're like, yes, I work on the bendy part. All right, are you ready for us?
Okay, so here's the concept. Sorry about the confusion. You're going to stitch your collar from that center front point all the way to the shoulder seam. There's the shoulder seam. You're going to have it clipped at 1/4 inch. And then you're going to peel this back and stitch all the way over to the other shoulder seam where you have also a clip. Then continue down to the center front on this side. Okay, this is what's important to leave loose. This is what throws everybody for a loop.
Including you.
No, that part doesn't. Yeah, I just, I make these all the time, and for me to have a problem, I'm like, what the heck? So now we're going to fold this back on the fold line, not the center front line. So that's here. And just fold it back on that line, and it'll match right up with your seam. You can put a pin in if you like. And then it should match right to the shoulder seam here. So it should line right up with that clip and that shoulder seam. And again, we're at 1/4 inch seam allowance.
There's that light trying to make an appearance again.
Okay, so I'll do both sides eventually, but I just want to show you. No clipping of that corner because that seam allowance is needed to fill in that corner. So do not clip that corner. Remember how we talked about it. If it'll fill the space and not overlap anything, we don't clip it. So this will come out like this. And, oops, fold back. And there's our beautiful collar eventually when it's its top stitch. Now, you want to close up this inside here, but we've got to go press first before we do that.
All right, so back.
Yeah, let me see what I've got on my list of things that I want to do. Stitch collar facing, press clapper. Okay, I've got to do the other side. And you've got your nice little clip to fold on. So it should be right there. And in this case, I can start right on that edge. Remember, this is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's so important to always be accurate with your seam allowance, otherwise your pieces just won't fit together right. So many times when people write me, and especially my craftsy class people, and they go, oh, you know, something's not fitting right. Did you make a mistake with your pattern? Well, after I get over being insulted that they think I would put out a bad pattern, then I say, okay, well, let's go back and check your seam allowances. And 9 times out of 10, they've used the wrong seam allowance and don't understand why the pieces won't fit together. So, here's where we're at with our collar. So here's the right side, the outside. Here's our collar here. We've got our facing right to the shoulder seam. But we still have this open, okay? So let's go and press this up, and then we can come back and top stitch it.
Can we answer a question real fast? And I think I'm gonna want to show it.
Okay.
Lynn, Janet has talked about this before. It is definitely one of her major suggestions. She wants to know, what is the foot you're using? The narrowness of it seems like it would make more difficult situations so much easier.
And you're absolutely right. And this is just a standard industrial sewing machine foot. These machines that were made by, most manufacturers made them. Baby Lock, Brother, I believe Viking had one. They all had the same machine. They're probably made in the same darn factory. But that's why they can have these industrial feet. And you can buy a plethora, I mean a huge, thick catalog of feet to fit any of these home industrial machines. And they're very inexpensive compared to home machine feet as well. So I don't know, you can't use this narrow of a foot on your home machine, especially your new ones, and let me show you why. Because you see how close together those feed dog are? The foot has to have some contact with those feed dog. And if you've got an embroidery machine, chances are your feed dog are out this far. So that's why you have that great big fat foot. And I remember when those fat feet first came out, and I was just incensed because I didn't like them. I couldn't see what I was doing. I didn't feel they were as easy to manipulate. And I kept wondering to myself, why did they think this was a good idea? Then I realized it's when the big wide zigzags came in the embroidery and all of that came in. The feet got wider because the feed dog had to get wider so that they could leave that hole in the plate for zigzag getting really wide. So that's why. Right. So industrial machine with only a straight stitch plate, you can do wonders and have so much more control.
All right, let's see some more.
All right, yes.
Pressing. We have a clean iron.
Oh, good.
Stitch together collar.
This is
a barking dog.
Day. I've not had this much trouble in a long time.
It's always fun here, guys.
So now it's just a matter of getting everything pressed, because we're going to have to come in here and top stitch everything. Now you're going to want to clip this entire seam allowance at the neck, okay? So that it'll fold up inside the collar.
Here, you want me to grab the tailor points?
Yeah, give me the tailor points. These aren't going to get it. I thought I could. Fake it.
I don't take them from
All right. Yeah, nothing.
Again, another. Gotta have those tailor points.
I'm telling you, nothing works like a tailor point. There we go.
Like butter.
I'm going to do the same thing over here. And clip it right to the stitching. And then we want to press that seam allowance up. And that's why we had to clip it, because from here over it's pressed down. So here we want to press it up, okay? And now we're going to come in and top stitch. But what I have to do before I top stitch all this is press this neckline really good and clap it, because we're going to be top stitching across it as well.
Okay. Sarge owes an apology to Kathy's cat.
Oh no! Did he scare her cat?
He woke up the cat.
Oh gee. That's funny. Okay. All right. All right.
Are we going back to the machine?
We're going back to the sewing machine.
Oh, okay. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, oh boy. Okay. Just trying to decide which way to approach this. Start from here. All right, so we want to top stitch a needle width away, all the way up the front. And you see how easy it is to glide right along, because I've clapped it and I made it so flat that nothing is resisting. So I can get a nice clean straight. There's some stitches, thread to get out of there. All right, so here I'm going to come along and just tack that down. And then I do this little cheat thing. You can kind of call it a cheat, whatever you want. And this is where I'm tacking down the end of that facing. It's sitting there. Let me show you the other side so you can see what I'm talking about. This right here, I'm stitching right across here from the right side, right along the shoulder seam. All right, and we'll do the same thing. Well, we can close up the neck now, and we can do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to close up this neckline by folding this under 1/4 of an inch. And when you fold it under 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to start from this side, sorry. You want it to be laying right on top of the previous stitching so that it will lay flat and be accurate. So we're going to fold this up. Come on. Lay it right up. What is wrong with you? And you just want to close up that collar all across the back. I'm sorry, you probably should put some clips in here. I think that I got off to a bad start today. And I know you all know what I'm talking about. We all have those days. So, if it wasn't on camera, I'd probably be going in and taking a break right now to get my mojo back. But anyway, so make sure you make those clips before you start sewing. And you really want to keep a nice snug hold on this bottom and almost have to pull on it, because you've stitched this and it kind of, anytime you stitch a seam, it pulls it up and makes it slightly shorter. So in order to get this to match up nicely, you're going to want to kind of pull on that, and then it will lay nice and flat. Okay, so now we've got the collar closed up between the shoulder seams. And then we're going to top stitch up the other side of the front just like we did the first side, but I don't think that you need to see me do that. What do you think? Does anybody feel the need to see that?
I don't.
Okay.
If anybody does, though, feel free to say so.
And
but you know, needle width away.
And of course, all the instructions are in the book and everything. But then we're going to put the sleeves in. So are we ready? What time? How much time do we have left?
I don't know what time it is.
Hey, Brenda, what time is it?
Oh,
3:09. I can put a sleeve in pretty fast, and we could stop at that.
Yeah, Carlo, those are the Kai needlepoint scissors, and they're on our website.
Tailor point.
What did I say?
Needlepoint.
A needlepoint? That would be weird. We don't do that. Tailor point.
All right. That's a double, so that's a back. This is the front. Okay, are we ready? I'm going to throw this sleeve in, and then we'll pick up from here next week.
Okay. You put the seam in with the needlepoint scissors?
Yeah. And you clip the curve after you stitch the seam closed. Oh.
All right,
okay.
So we're going to put the sleeve in.
Oh my goodness. All right, so sleeve goes against the feed dog, right side up. Then the shirt, right side down, so that we've got right sides together. Come down and match up your underarm at the underarm here. And it'll look kind of like this. There's a little, the sleeve's gonna stick out beyond the actual shirt. Do you see that? A little point sticking out there.
Let me get...
I had a class not too long ago, and most of the people in the class didn't realize. They thought that you had to make a match, but if you make a match, then they're not going to come together right here. So actually, that's supposed to stick out just a little bit. All right, so we're going to stitch this seam at 3/8 of an inch. I know, we're a mess today, Jess.
Truth.
All right, and this will come together quite easily right up to the notch. So it's pretty much matching.
I've heard that before.
But yeah, so far. You want to make sure that you match the notch so it's thumb under, fingers on top. And you want to make sure that you sew on the curve. Don't straighten this out. Sew into the curve. Once you get up to that notch, then you find your next notch, which is near the sleeve cap right here. And that goes to the shoulder seam. So we put that up to the shoulder seam. Thumb under, fingers on top, hold it there. Come back and continue stitching our sleeve. Now when we get up closer to the cap, there's going to be a lot of ease, as you can see. See how the cap of the sleeve is sticking out, and this is the arm side. I'm holding this, thumb under, fingers on top, and then I just pull the rest of the sleeve in as I sew. So you see that? Just pull it in. Maintain your accurate seam allowance. Okay, and then we find our next notch, which is our double notch in the back. Okay, and again, very accurate. You see how those match up perfect. You know you're spot on.
You're redeeming yourself.
Finally. Okay, well, you know what? If you've not made a mistake sewing, I don't know who you are. You must be able to walk on water too. was the same process. I'm just pulling from underneath that bottom layer to make sure that the raw edges come together. Now, this can also be done on the serger. You can put your sleeve in with the serger. You want a 4th thread, but you're going to have an extension table. And most of you don't have extension tables for your serger or a cabinet. So if you don't, it's going to be a lot harder because you can see how I need this whole surface for everything to slide across. And if your serger doesn't have that, it won't be very easy to do, particularly without pins or basting. So in that case, just do it with your straight stitch like I did. And then you take it to the serger and you use a 3 thread and finish the raw edges of the seam. So for next week, follow what I did without the mistakes on the collar.
Do as she says, not as she does.
Yeah. And get your sleeves in and get the serging completed around there. But look how nice the sleeve is. It went in beautifully. And I know that many of you have been subscribing to the old school method of sewing up the underarms, sewing up the sleeve, then putting a basting stitch in and pulling it all up and trying to get that sleeve to fit perfectly. It's a lot of work and it's not necessary for a shirt sleeve. When you're doing a high cap sleeve on a dressier garment or jacket, sometimes you do need to do that gathering to ease it in. But in the case of a shirt sleeve, there's not that much. So you don't need to do it. You just let your feed dog do the work. Okay. Anything else?
They just want to know about your shirt that you're wearing.
Oh, it's just a old shirt out of the closet because I want to wear something different than I keep wearing on the show. But it's a silk print.
It was purchased.
It was purchased.
Okay. So don't forget to let us know which Islander pattern you personally would like to make next, and we'll draw a winner, 2 winners next week for the mini grabbits. Alrighty.
So if I lost anybody, be sure to just send me questions or ask next week so I can straighten out any confusion that might have happened with my little mishap. But otherwise, you can see our shirt's really coming together here.
If you have any major questions, go to email islandersewing@comcast.net, just because sometimes your comments can be lost on the videos with there being so many on there. So if you're really stuck on something that you're trying to get done for our next week's sew along, feel free to email us. Alrighty, looking good. Alright, we'll be back next Tuesday at
2 o'clock Eastern Time.
And we will see you then.
That's all from Islander Sewing Systems. Thank you.
Bye-bye.